Frank's Red Hot is the perfect blend of flavor and heat, so you can use an entire bottle to make recipes like buffalo chicken dip or buffalo nachos, or even things that don't start with buffalo. Frank's Red Hot, I put that on everything.
It's almost Cougar football Saturday, Craig.
Woo!
Woo!
I'm ready for a win, please.
Yeah, that'd be nice. I think we could use one of those.
Yeah, it's been a while.
The season's half over, dude.
I know. And it feels like when you don't have a conference win, it feels like the season hasn't even started.
I'm still, I'll be honest, I don't know how you feel sort of about this, but every time like it gets brought up that we don't have a conference win or we're 0-3 in the Pac-12, like it's still for some reason is not just registering. Like I don't know if it's because I never really look at standings, at least not that often, and so like I don't think I've actually looked at standings that have us at the bottom with 0-3. So maybe that's why it's like I don't know. My brain is just sort of refusing to believe that we are 0-3.
That sounds great, man. I want to live in your world.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. It's like I know we're 0-3. It's just like I don't know. I'm like, oh, maybe they can get their first conference win, and like my brain knows we don't have a conference win, and then but somewhere inside me, it's like, oh, they're fine, and it's like they're not fine at all.
Well, hopefully, this is podcast versus everyone, and with me I am Craig Powers, and with me as always is Jeff Nusser, who might think that the Cougs are 6-0. I'm not sure.
Yeah, just call me Pollyanna.
Yeah.
That's me. La la la, everything's great.
Yeah, currently watching I'm not watching at the moment, but was watching UCLA destroy Stanford, and
I was. And I got to admit, that makes me happy on a number of levels. Whenever
I turn to it, UCLA was doing something shitty, and that just gives me a pang.
There's definitely some of that.
Like I saw DTR throw a horrible interception, and I'm like, why couldn't you do that against us?
He did do that once against us.
Well, do it a lot.
He needed to do it a couple more times.
Yeah. All right. Well, this isn't more UCLA.
We don't want to relive UCLA again?
No, this is the Colorado preview.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Which this is I'm not going to lie, writing up this preview, one of the most fun or just interesting previews to write, because you use that Spider-Man meme in your Monday column, but these
which Michael talked about on his podcast too. Like it really does fit.
It fits for this. So this is two teams with very good offenses and horrendous defenses. Like offenses that belong in a top tier conference, and offenses that belong at the top tier of the top tier of a top tier conference, and defenses that belong in the FCS. So it's pretty crazy. So going through that, let's start with Colorado's offense against the WSU defense, because we always start with the more depressing side, and then we end on a higher note.
Yeah, I like that.
And we will end on a high note today once we get into that Coug offense versus the defense. Colorado's offense. Obviously, the headline, the guy everyone wants to talk about, Laviska Shenault. Real playmaker, although I don't know if you've noticed, it seems that in Oregon, after he missed Arizona and missed most of Arizona State after being hurt during that game, they kind of dialed back his touches. He had 4 catches for 70 yards, which is very good, but he didn't carry the ball, which he had done about 3 times per game before that early in the season, and he didn't return kicks, which is one of his most impactful attributes is his ability to return kicks. So it'll be interesting to see if he does either of those things against the Cougs, because that's definitely something that he could make an impact doing both of those on the end arounds and returning kicks.
Yeah, that's definitely an indicator that he's not fully healthy, because you're avoiding the situations where he's not going to get hit, right? I mean, if he's carrying the ball, if he's kick returning, he's definitely going to get hit. As a wide receiver, you're going to get hit, but you've also maybe got the opportunity to duck out of a hit, just kind of protect yourself a little bit in a way that you otherwise wouldn't be able to if you were running the ball or if you're kick returning. It's unfortunate that let me rephrase. It's fortunate for us that he appears to be a little bit fragile. It's unfortunate for everyone else, including, just college football fans in general, that such a dynamic talent has a hard time staying healthy. But yeah, it's definitely gonna be interesting if he can't do those things. And I'm sure we're gonna, talk about the weather at some point, but if he can't do those things, I mean, that's definitely a benefit for us simply because, the passing game's figured to be muted to some degree, by the weather. And so if he's limited to just, throws, then, hopefully that means that his impact is a little bit depressed.
Yeah, definitely. And as you allude to, the passing games could be muted a little bit, not just because of the rain, because of the wind, right. But definitely on Colorado's side, the passing game is their best asset. Montez seems like he's been there forever because he has.
Yes, he has.
Because he started for 3 years now and played quite a bit as a freshman.
Yep.
So yeah, and he's basically been the same guy his whole career. Hasn't changed a lot. He's definitely thrown the ball a little more this year, been a little bit more productive than he was last year. Probably more explosive as he was his sophomore year. I think he was battling some injuries last year. But yeah, so obviously his last game was awful. He threw 4 picks. I wouldn't really take that as any sort of predictive thing for the Coug game, because Oregon's defense looks pretty amazing, and WSU is not going to harass Montez the same way. So you definitely won't see that. But if you look at the rest of his season, 10 touchdowns, 2 picks, he's been pretty good. One thing when I was going through the numbers, they're pretty good staying on schedule with the pass, and what they're particularly good at is passing downs, and a lot of that is because they are able to get themselves in sort of those middle of the road passing downs, so the 4 to 6 yards, and that's where Montez has done really well. He's completed 70% of his passes. 8.6 yards a pass on those middle of the road. So you look at Colorado, that they actually on success rate, standard down success rate, they are 90 in the 90s. So they are not good at staying on schedule. But when they get to but they can stay good enough to where they're in like a medium passing down, then they can convert pretty well, because on passing downs they're rated pretty highly. So so they're pretty effective on passing downs, but they do, like many teams, stick to the run quite a bit on first down, which is crazy because their passing game is definitely their more effective route of moving the ball. But it kind of looks like, Jeff, that Mel Tucker is more in line with trying to, do that 50-50. And if you look at the numbers, they are literally, so if you factor in kind of sacks as passes and things like that, they're like almost exactly 50% runs and passes. Yeah.
Well, that's what you get when you import a defensive coordinator from the SEC. What do you expect?
Well, exactly. Yeah.
We're going to run the ball, and we are going to be physical. We are going to win in the trenches. And yeah, we'll talk about their defense later, which is sort of the hilarious part.
Yeah. And
like their defense is so bad, but it's like, we're going to run and we're going to be physical and, maybe not take advantage of the fact that we have a senior quarterback who's seen tons of things. I mean, that's the thing with Montez. It's like, I don't think anybody thinks he's good. But it's like, it's a testament to how effective you can be as a college quarterback if you just play enough, right? Like if you, and obviously Gardner Minshew was on a different plane, but I think Minshew was sort of a testament to that to some degree too. Like, when you play enough and you see enough reps and you see enough different defenses, enough coverages, enough whatever, there comes a point where you've sort of seen everything. And even if your talent is marginal or above average or whatever you want to consider it, at the college level, you can have a lot of success just by sort of having a clue. And, I think everybody sort of agrees with Anthony Gordon that what he's doing right now is a function of having been around. Now, obviously, he hasn't seen the same sort of live game reps. And so some of the struggles that we see, I think, are an outgrowth of that. But the command of the offense, is I think, a function of just having repped it, to such an extreme degree over the last 4 years. So Montez, sort of fits into that category for me. You see guys like this, where it's like, they start for 3 or 4 years and, by that last year, they've sort of seen it all and they can at least figure out a way to be effective, rather than sort of be clueless. So
except against Oregon's defense.
Yeah, except against Oregon's defense, which, that's going to happen to just about everybody this year, I think, because that defense is really, I was going to watch Colorado, Oregon, and then I just was like, nah. I was like, I'm not going to learn anything from watching that. Like the gap between Oregon's defense and our defense is like Grand Canyon-esque. So I don't think I'm going to learn much, but.
Right. And, it's obviously having a senior back there that helps a lot, and then they have some pretty talented receivers. That's why they're able to convert. Once again, it's another team against WSU's defense, who is bad at most everything, but particularly bad on passing downs and allowing big passing plays. It's a crazy thing. WSU is 21st in yards to go against on third down. So like the 21st fewest yards to go against, or most yards to go against. So they're facing like third and longs. They're getting to third and long quite a bit, but they're 87th in third down success rate. And what success rate on third down is defined by converting the third down. Right. So they are just, they're just getting lit up in the passing game. So once again, you have another team that is their best attribute is they're getting to that third and long and they're converting it. That's the same as what Arizona State was like. Same as, we saw Utah do that same thing. We saw UCLA do the same thing. So there's no doubt in my mind that Colorado can do it again. Wind, if wind isn't too much of a factor or whatever. So that's, I don't know. It's like, what do you say? Like every time, like you can break down, you find the weakness, but then there's a lot of weaknesses for WSU. Yeah. So you kind of look at what the other team doesn't do well. And for Colorado, that's running the ball. They 105th in yards per carry, and they still rush the ball like a lot, more than most teams.
Got to control that clock, Craig.
Yeah, of course. They run the ball actually a little bit more than Arizona State, I think. But one thing they do well is they don't get tackled behind the line very often, and they don't get tackled at the line, and that's why you see they're actually pretty high, and they do pretty well in having shorter third down. So even though because they're running on first down more often than not, but they're at least getting like 2 or 3 yards rather than not getting tackled in the backfield. And because Montez doesn't get sacked very much, he's only been sacked 7 times all year. They're not getting negative plays. They're not getting havoc plays. They're avoiding those. With the Oregon game with the interceptions is the exception, but they've really avoided the big negative plays. And that's honestly, that's all I could gather as to why they have such a high SP plus rating.
It's very strange.
Yeah. What is it? 13th, 14th. But they've been roughly 12 to 14th like all year. But none of their peripherals are that good. Like they're not. I mean, their success rate is 95th. You know, that's not good, or 94th. Right. So the peripherals, they're not that explosive overall. I think they're 61st in explosion or something around there. They're not that explosive of a team. They're not as successful as a team, and these are what go into this. They've played 2 good defenses, or 1 really good defense, 1 decent defense, and then a bunch of crap. So I don't think they're getting a big schedule adjustment. And
especially when you consider that the game against Oregon, they didn't do anything.
Right.
Like you might get a bump if you had played, pretty well against that really good defense, but they didn't. So.
Yeah. And they probably are getting a bump from Arizona State, because WSU definitely did. They had dropped to 6th. They went back up to 4th after playing Arizona State. Yeah. But I can't think it's that big of a jump, I don't know. So there's something there. So what I could just gather is because they're so good at just like avoiding negative plays and keeping it in third and manageable, that they're able to move the ball more than an offense that would normally have some of their peripherals. So, yeah. But yeah, it really comes down to me once again. Those passing downs, and WSU is god awful in those situations.
I mean, is it anything more, do you think, than just preventing big plays? Like, I'm tempted to be like, this is really just about preventing the 85-yard, the 40-yard run, you know what I mean? Like,
why WSU is giving up the 3rd and 10 is because they don't want the 80-yard.
Yes, and you look at, and I know the 85-yard touchdown wasn't on 3rd down, but you know what I mean? It's like they obviously have a problem with explosive plays. And, if they can limit the explosive plays, you have to think, okay, maybe they stand a chance. And, against Arizona State, you wonder, like, if they don't give up, an 85-yard touchdown pass, if they don't give up a 40-yard touchdown pass, if they don't give up a 35-yard touchdown run on 3rd down, like, I mean, those are 3 plays that all went for, 35 yards plus. And it's like, at some point you got to stop those. You're not going to survive giving up, 3 of those. You're not. And, it seems like Colorado is kind of dependent on those to some degree, needing some of those big plays to sort of bail themselves out of the long yardage situations that they put themselves in with the poor running game. If the Cougars are truly committed to getting back to or recommitting to speed D philosophy, I mean, speed D philosophy was, keep guys in front and rally to the ball. So
and there was lots of tackles for loss were in that too.
Yeah,
and,
so that was
and I don't see that coming in this.
That game. Is true. That is true. And so that was the counterbalance, right? You're playing a little soft on the outside, and you're going to give up some completions, but you're also going to get some sacks, and obviously the sacks aren't there yet. So, yeah, I don't know. If
they were against Arizona State, so that's a little bit of hope.
They did get a few. They got a few early when Arizona State was struggling with what looked like some pretty simple twists up front, but. Right. At any rate, they got a few. So, that definitely played into Arizona State getting out of the gate kind of slow. So, yeah, I don't, who knows? Maybe they can do a little bit of that and, shore up their technique a little bit in the open field. I mean, if Marcus Strong can, or the safeties or whoever can simply just make a guy slow down for a beat until somebody else can rally to the runner and try and bring him down. Then maybe you can bend but not break if you're lucky, that sort of thing.
Also, Montez is not as good as Jaden Daniels.
No, he's not.
So, Arizona State's offense is worse, but I think
I don't know that they're going to be worse for that much longer, to be honest.
Yeah, I know. They just stay. Yeah,
the last couple weeks, including
against Cal, they were showing more.
Even granted, it's us, but against Cal, they look pretty okay. You've got a true freshman who's figuring some stuff out. I think it may turn out that ASU offense is actually pretty decent. Yeah. So unless it's barring being intentionally held back by offensive philosophy and things like that.
Yeah, which what I saw in that, we won't talk about ASU too much, but what I saw is that I think that ASU's coaching staff saw that they could benefit from a few more passes, and they did.
Yeah.
And then the running game kind of opened up in the second half for them because of that. But yeah, so the running game, Colorado's is bad, but Arizona State's was struggling as well. It just seems like WSU doesn't have the talent right now to make a team pay who has a shaky offensive line in terms of run blocking. Like they just don't have the players that can make you pay for that.
Sure, seems like it.
One of my hosts was, they did seem to grab Eno Benjamin, sometimes behind the line, sometimes at the line, sometimes 3 yards downfield, and then he would break a tackle and get another couple yards pretty much every time he touched the ball. I don't know. I don't know Colorado's running backs that good, but I don't think they have the kind of the ability to break tackles that Benjamin has. So hopefully our guys can tackle a little better and maybe hold down some of those runs, because really the Buffs are another bad running team, but I still have a hard time saying that WSU is going to stop them in the run anyway. So
it's hard to imagine them stopping anybody at anything ever.
Yeah, it is. So yeah, that's the I don't know, like Colorado, bottom line, Colorado's going to score some points. Weather be damned, they'll still score some points. Like they don't have anything particularly incredible about their offense, but somehow they score points and they do it, and they seem to have the right sort of things to punish WSU's weaknesses, which is the whole thing, but they're more particular weaknesses. They're more infuriating weaknesses, I should say. So yeah, I'm expecting Colorado, and like if this was a clear night, I think that Colorado would be moving the ball pretty well, and we'll get into that when WSU has the ball as well. But yeah, so Colorado offense probably pretty good. Not 100% sure, but probably pretty good. And WSU defense definitely very bad. So look for points on that side. So that's the first kind of part of this good offense versus bad defense. And I guess before we can get into our side of that coin, maybe we should take a break.
That sounds good. And we're back.
All right.
Buy that
Warrior.
Thing. Listen to that podcast.
Yeah. Ninja Warrior podcast. I don't know. Maybe it was, or maybe it
might have been.
Or there was some other.
The Shutdown Fullcast shows up a lot too.
Yeah. But yeah, so all right, Coug offense.
This is more fun.
Finally against a truly bad defense again. After playing two solid defenses, making one look pretty bad, making one look pretty good. We are once again back in Pullman against a 113th SP Plus rated Colorado defense, and unlike with their offense where they're rated highly but you can't quite figure it out, you definitely know why Colorado is rated poorly in defense, because they suck at pretty much everything. They suck at defending the pass, they suck at defending the run, they suck on passing downs, they suck on standard downs, they suck in they suck in scoring opportunity rate, touchdown rate. One thing they're decent at is red zone touchdown rate. We'll talk about that in a little bit when we talk about kind of the overall look of the game. But yeah, so WSU is still just torching people in the passing game. Incredible numbers. I mean, when you're talking about they are we got third in passing success rate, 13th in yards per pass, and 9th in passing down success rate. So their passing game is crazy good. Still more explosive even this year than usual. Colorado's allowing a lot of explosive plays and passes. Colorado is 125th in yards allowed per pass. Colorado is giving up 48.5% success rate on passes. That's very bad. They're giving up 40% conversions on passing downs. That's really bad. They only create havoc on 13% of plays, which we talked about last week, is interceptions, fumbles, sacks, things of that nature, and pass defenses, and negative plays. The 122nd in that. Their passing defense is awful. Like, it's just straight awful. Again, if this was a clear day, this would be drop 70 all over the place. But it's not. Weather forecast says 10 to 20 mile per hour winds, which is a bigger deal than the rain. But I still think that WSU is going to be able to pass the ball on these guys, because it's just, they're such a bad pass defense. And a bad defense overall. 124th in yards per play, 112th in success rate on standard downs, 123rd in success rate overall. Like, they're just like over 100 in almost every category in defense. It's going to be hard for Gordon not to be tempted to just throw the ball around. Even if it's impacted by wind, because it's just guys are probably gonna be open, and so it'll just be like, is the wind so bad that he can't hit them? Which we've seen that happen before. We actually happened against Colorado last year to Gardner Minshew. Gordon has a better arm than Minshew. Maybe that doesn't impact him as much, but it's definitely gonna be an impact. But I still think guys are gonna be open. And I expect Gordon and company to still have a pretty good day in the passing game despite the weather, just because Colorado's passing defense is awful.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not having to thread the ball into really tight windows, the wind maybe doesn't make as big of a difference. And so many of our passes are, short to medium type throws. It's not like we're necessarily bombing it all over the field. That's where, Minshew really was sort of like surprised by last year's game. He was trying to throw a 20-yard pass or whatever, and it sailed, 5 yards to pass the receiver and 5 yards away from him, so, and obviously Gordon will throw some of that stuff downfield, but but lately, he's tended not to really take a lot of those, what you might consider shots, So I think the question is really whether the wind affects those, those intermediate throws. Those are the ones where you really can do the damage. And, if he's not trying to, put some air under those, something like a Y cross, right, where the inside receiver on the right, goes across the field and a lot of times will settle in that little pocket behind the linebackers, but in front of the safeties, that's about, 15 to 20 yards downfield, and you kind of float it in there. As long as the wind's not wreaking too much havoc with those kinds of throws, you should be all right. What you really don't want is, the wind messing with those kinds of throws, and maybe, something takes off on him or whatever and lands in the hands of a safety. So I think that's the main concern. I don't really worry too much about the accuracy overall, but this kind of game where when you've got two sort of relatively equal offenses and two sort of relatively equally terrible defenses, weirdness could really play an outsized role. A fumble or an interception or whatever. And for whatever reason, we've had some pretty shitty luck on that front with both of those things this year. So here's to hoping maybe that luck starts to turn around on Saturday.
Well, yeah, definitely. And having Arconato back will hopefully
Huge.
open up more of those middle throws. Which, I mean, obviously Gordon said, he probably wasn't supposed to say that, but
probably not.
but he did, and I believe him.
I mean, it's weird because Arconato's been happy and healthy all this time, right?
I know. I thought he was just hanging out.
Very strange.
He was just letting other people play his position.
But in all seriousness, the other people who played his position didn't produce like he did, and some of that may be a function of Utah and Arizona State. But at the same time, I think it's real that, the guy who played there, Renard Bell, just didn't produce as well as Arconado did. And that's not some huge slight on Bell. Obviously, he's changed positions, whatever. That's not an easy thing for these guys because they really do the receivers just focus on one position. But, frankly, he just wasn't as productive. And so getting Arconado back would be really great on a number of fronts. It adds another body to the wide receiver rotation, gives a little more flexibility personnel-wise. It's just a good thing all around. Really good thing all around for the offense.
Yeah, and I will say Colorado's rush defense is pretty much just as bad as its pass defense. So if the weather is so bad and Gordon wants to hand it off to Max a few extra times, I'm sure he would love to show out against his hometown or his home state team again.
Yeah, he definitely enjoyed it last year.
Yes, he did. So I actually still, even if Borgie gets 15 carries, I could see him getting 100 yards in this game.
Yeah.
And I expect him to pick up some. I fully expect this to be a pretty good big game for Max in both the passing and running. I think he if the Cougs can come out on top, he'll be in line for some potential Player of the Week awards. So I think this could be a nice game for him. He loved playing in Colorado last year, and I'm sure he'll love playing against Colorado again. And that probably pains them quite a bit because he was once a Colorado commit. Yes. But he wanted to come. He wanted to come air raid.
I don't think he regrets his decision either.
I don't think he does. Yes,
I think 15 carries is a good target. By the way, I think that would be. We obviously a lot of our fans are clamoring for more rushing attempts. I was listening, I think we both listened to the Coug Talk podcast, and Connor Halliday is, advocating for more rushing. Everybody wants more rushing attempts. But there's only so much you can do, within the confines of the air raid, with that. But I think 15 runs for him plus whatever, 5-ish, touches he gets in the passing game. I think, if he's right around 20 touches, I think you're feeling pretty good about, getting the ball into his hands enough time. I don't know. Does that sound about right to you?
Yeah, I would think so. Especially given that Gordon does not use the running backs as much as previous quarterbacks have done. Yeah,
there was a story in the Spokesman today or yesterday about just sort of the distribution of targets or the distribution of receptions as it was, which I think was a little off base because they, classified H and Y and didn't quite do it right and whatever. But the big takeaway was that, last year, 30% of the receptions had gone to the running backs, and this year it's 15%. That's a massive, drastic drop off. Most of that has now gone to the Z receiver. So, there you go. But it's pretty wild.
We're probably our two best receivers.
Right. Yeah. With Patman and Winston. So that's great. I mean, it makes total sense. It's just kind of wild to think, we got used to seeing so many throws to the running backs last year and especially the year before with Falk. And so now all of a sudden you have a quarterback who wants to put the ball in the hands of his receivers, and it's definitely a pretty striking, stunning difference. Tomorrow might be one of those games where, Borgie just, he gets some rushes and he gets some more of those swing passes just because of the conditions. So, I think 20 targets or 20 touches, I think is a pretty good target for Borgie. I think just on a weekly basis.
Yeah, absolutely. He is probably our most dynamic guy with the ball in his hands. So.
And I think he needs the ball in his hands about that much. It doesn't need to be a force feed. It doesn't need to be, some sort of super concerted effort. But I do think there are times where, the quarterback needs to just, when it might be borderline, hand the ball off. It's okay. It's if you're looking at it and you're going, I'm not sure. I think I've got leverage here. It's okay to hand the ball off. And I know why it doesn't happen when the ball's in the hands of the quarterback and the quarterback's the one basically making the play call. The quarterback's going to trust himself, right? So I understand that, but hopefully Gordon is maybe getting enough confidence to say it's okay. Let Borgie go and do his thing.
Yep. So you basically have two offenses. They're going to move the ball on these defenses. One thing that I kind of looked at in my preview is, okay, so all things even on those sides. Really, it's going to come down to they're both going to find themselves deep in the opposition territory. We call it a scoring opportunity if they're inside the 40. Obviously, the red zone opportunity is a traditional stat that everyone uses. Both defenses do a lot better when they're in the red zone. They actually are pretty decent nationally in preventing touchdowns once in the red zone. WSU is about middle of the road nationally in allowing touchdowns on scoring opportunities. Colorado a little worse. So it's going to be interesting to see. That could be a difference maker for WSU if they can convert more of those opportunities once they're in there. I think having a guy like Max Borgie in the run game probably has helped that touchdown rate for WSU. They're very good. They're 11th in scoring in cashing in scoring opportunities for touchdowns. And they're pretty high in the red zone as well. I think like 17th or something in touchdown rate. And I think, having guys like Aesop Winston, who is very difficult to guard in short spaces, and having guys like Max Borgie, who's very difficult to tackle in between the tackles. So that has helped them. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if WSU does that. Explosive plays, like you said, weirdness, could definitely play a factor. Both bad defenses, which means explosive plays can happen, and they have in the past. So I think WSU's offense is a little better at that. So hopefully they're the ones to get a couple of those big plays and not let Colorado stiffen up in the red zone or whatever. So that's my hope. I think overall, man, WSU's better and they're at home, but it's not such a vast gap that it's a guarantee for the Cougs to come away with one.
Yeah, the spread seems rather crazy.
I mean, it's not when you look at the numbers, it's not that crazy. But I think maybe we're kind of just because.
Well, we're
WSU
definitely reeling a bit. I mean,
WSU's reeling a bit, but yeah.
Even just as fans, like for me, I'm just like, I can't imagine us beating anyone by 2 touchdowns right now. I mean, maybe they could, but I can't see it at the moment.
Yeah, because of the defense,
right.
Because it's just, it seems like they're not going to stop anyone.
I mean, I could see this game being 7 to 10 points. Like, I don't know that I see it being 11 plus, if that makes sense. But
all right, well, let's get into the predictions. All right, you go first as always.
Yeah, so like I said, I could see it being 7 to 10 points. I think it'll probably be less than that. I fully expect this game to be some sort of crazy. I don't know if that comes from turnovers, from conditions, from special teams, from something, but it just has the mark of a game that's going to be very, very weird, and weird stuff is going to happen. Now, hopefully for the first time this year, the weird stuff happens in our benefit and in our favor, because it's been sort of bananas how little of that has come around our direction. So, I am hoping for that, but I'm not positive it's going to happen. I do think that the Cougars win. I do think it's probably a touchdown or less. And I do think that the score is probably I think the winning score is in the low to mid 40s. So let's go like 42-35. Let's do that. 42-35. So I just said less than a touchdown, but now I'm like saying a touchdown. So.
Right at a touchdown.
Right at
but
a
not
touchdown.
Covering.
Not covering though. I like I said, it's probably where we're at right now that we just can't imagine that. And I mean, I feel like, look, I'm all over the place right now. I mean, obviously we expected a big win over UCLA, which was like, 3/4 of the way to happening and then fell apart. I think I'm pretty sure we both predicted wins against Utah, or did you?
No, we both predicted losses against Utah. I'm pretty sure.
Did we?
Yeah.
All right. Well, maybe we thought. Maybe it was like we thought we were going to lose close, and then we got blown out. I just remember being way off. That's probably what it was. I remember being way off, and then of course I predicted a big win last weekend, and whatever. So I just feel like I really don't have a beat on this team. About the only thing I expect is that that they won't come out flat. I do think that a fourth loss in a row pretty much spells doom for the season. And so for that reason, I expect that they will come out strong. I expect that they did last week, right? If there was an opportunity for a mentally weak team to fall apart, last week really would have been it. They didn't do it. I think they're encouraged by last weekend's game. I mean, Leach was, at least as he goes, he was pretty positive after the game. And I think the team will feed off that. They'll enjoy being back home for the first time in a while. And I think all of that plays into a Coug victory finally.
Yeah. If they don't get this win,
oh God.
Yeah. I mean,
Then you go and you get spanked by Oregon, and then you got to bye, and then
Cal
and
it could
spiral.
It could spiral in a hurry. But I'm thinking I'm probably a little more optimistic than you. That Colorado defense is so bad. Like, I think it makes the WSU defense look better by comparison. And I do
which
think
is really saying something.
I do think by SP Plus, Colorado's offense is a touch overrated because I really can't figure out why they're supposed to be so good. Obviously, Laviska Shenault, if healthy, is terrifying. They do also have some other playmakers on the outside and on that they can go to, but I just I think that if this was a good weather game, we might have seen like a 63-56, 63-52 type of crazy 110 plus point thing. I do think that the weather is going to dampen it. The fact that Colorado will probably run even more because of the rain. WSU won't. You're going to want them to, and you're going to tear your hair out, and you're going to like scream and yell. But it's not going to happen. They're not going to run the ball. They never do. They didn't run the ball in the snow last year. They don't run the ball in the rain. Like, it's just not going to happen. But they'll run the ball a little bit, and it'll probably be pretty successful when they do. But I actually think it's going to be pretty successful when they pass as well. So I'm going to go, let's see, 45-35 Cougs. So 3 points more than you. Still not covering, though.
Yeah. I think we're both on the same page. I mean, it's hard. I think just on some level, it's hard to fathom the team losing a fourth consecutive game. Like,
it's hard to fathom them losing the
totally
third as well.
like exactly. I mean, all this stuff is hard. Like, it's hard to fathom giving up a 32-point lead with 15 minutes to go. I mean, it's like whatever. I mean, obviously, all these things are hard to fathom, but I mean, at some point, something's got to kick in, right? I think.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, and if you also want to go look back, the last two games against Colorado in Martin Stadium have been awful weather. And it was 28-0 and 27-3. Yeah. So maybe this is just what Colorado gets shitty weather when they come to Pullman and they get their butts kicked, hopefully. So hopefully that's the tradition. Hopefully that keeps going, and we finally can get back to talking about a win on this weekend.
And the shitty weather that we get in Pullman is shittier than the shitty weather they get in Colorado.
Well, so provided it's not a thunderstorm.
Right. I mean, they might get thunderstorms, they might get snow, but we get that freezing cold-ass rain that's like so damn miserable. I mean, that game 2 years ago, which is the incidentally where the picture that goes with the podcast was taken, as I made my way up next to Craig, where I was like, you have seats next to you? You're under the overhang. Can we come sit next to you? Like,
I was like in
miserable.
a light, you were in full on like winter gear, and I was in a light
I
jacket.
was wearing rain gear.
Yeah, I had my buddy who went to Colorado with me, and we had like our jackets. We were
and he
sitting
was
on our bigger
delightful, by
jackets.
the way. He was a good sport.
He sent me. He was talking shit during the UCLA game, so he got some F-bombs from me, and we haven't messaged since. So I hope we're still okay.
I hope we're still friends.
I was in a state.
But
did not need to. But
what I was saying was that Colorado looked like they did not really want to be there in that game.
Yeah,
and I wonder if you get some of that this time, particularly because this is their second consecutive road game, coming off getting the snot beat out of them by Oregon. So and it's not even just the second consecutive road game; it's the second consecutive road game. They got the crap beat out of them last weekend, and they have to make their farthest road trip in the Pac-12. Like they've got to, fly all the way up to Washington from Colorado, and that's not a short flight to begin with. And then they got to, travel down from Spokane or whatever. I assume they're not flying into Pullman, although maybe they are. I know the new airport runway opened up, so maybe they are. But at any rate, it's not a super easy flight. It's not a short jaunt. And I have to think that those kinds of things affect them. And then when the weather is, frankly, just miserable, like that's sort of the way to describe it, right? I mean, it's not just rainy; it's like cold, and it's gonna be
when
40
it's 40, and it's and the wind is what really when you're wet and the wind is blowing, and
they're gonna get hit. And if you can put it on them just a little bit, I know we said that about Arizona State, but if you can put it on them a little bit, and it's cold and miserable, and maybe Montez throws a pick, they could fold up. You can imagine a scenario where they fold up pretty quickly.
Yeah, let's hope for that. Let's hope for a goddamn W.
Yes.
Please. All right, man.
Please with sugar on top.
I think this is our longest preview podcast.
Yeah. I think
so you're welcome, everyone.
We should stop.
Yeah, we should. All right, so subscribe.
Yes. Please subscribe.
Subscribe, rate 5 stars, tell a friend. Podcast versus everyone at gmail.com. Questions, comments, or on Twitter at pod versus everyone or at the Craig Powers. All that stuff. And go Cougs.
Go Cougs.